is a part of life. It is natural and definite. It is the only event that everyone around the world, past, present and future, will experience. And yet, as a collective society, we have decided that talking about death is too scary. It's too morbid, too unsettling. Completely denying the fact that death is not an oddity at all. It happens every day, many, many times over. And not in some far-off land either. It is normal as eating or breathing. So why are we so scared and so detached from death? Let's talk about that. Why does death scare us? The fear of death in many ways is a natural product of our biology. As living creatures, our survival as individuals and as a species relies on us making high-speed decisions so as not to fall off a cliff or be eaten by a bear. Unfortunately, this natural fight, flight, freeze response doesn't work out so well if there isn't a significant potential threat in front of us, like a lion or a mugger. And thus we're left with this underlying feeling of anxiety for the mere concept of death. It's the joy of being a conscious, self-aware being, isn't it? It is this self-awareness that explains the main reasons death scares us. Facing your mortality. We, as living creatures, are genetically and biologically disposable. We are not built for the long haul. Styrofoam has more longevity than we do. And it is this fact that we, the magnificent, awe-inspiring human being, has an expiration date that we find hard to accept. You could say that our entire developed, technologically advanced society makes for pretty good propaganda that we are indestructible. And long ago, we accepted this belief. Fear of the unknown. Once you die, is there an afterlife? A black hole? Something in between? Not knowing this answer fills us with anxiety because you can't prepare for it. Religions have been created to explain and give guidance, but that theory is really predicated on you choosing the right religion. So depending on the strength of your belief, this may or may not lessen your fear. Leaving others behind. This is more about the consequences of your own death. Are you leaving behind children, partner, parents, friends? How will they cope? Will they remember me? Will they move on? Many people, especially those with young children, fear the trauma their death will bring. On the other hand, for some, the idea that their loved ones will eventually be able to move on after their death makes them question their current relationships. Dying. For many, it is not death that scares us so much as the dying process. There's another fear of the unknown because generally you don't know how or when you're going to die. Will it be instant or drawn out? Will it be dignified or embarrassing? Will you have the chance to say goodbye? Will it be painful? No one, apart from maybe the occasional masochist, wants a long, drawn-out, painful death. Why do we feel death is unnatural or unacceptable? We all know that in theory, we must die at some point, but we're not so good at accepting that on a practical level. Seeing death as unnatural or unacceptable is not a universal belief. It was not always this way throughout history, and it certainly isn't this way throughout many cultures around the world today. Let's make that understood. This is not the norm. So how did we get here? Medical advances. There is always a good and bad, yin and yang in everything, and that includes medical advances. In the 1800s, the main causes of death were around injuries, infection, or some type of nutritional deficiency. A heart attack would take you overnight. A horse would kick you in the head in the morning and you would have died on your farm by that afternoon. For the most part, death was not prolonged, it was immediate. And you, as a person living in the 1800s, would acknowledge that while it sucked, it was normal. In the past 200 years, the medical field has continued to advance to a place where surgeons regularly perform great feats of brain surgery and organ transplants, which is brilliant. But it also means that we have come to believe that the medical field can fix anything. Not to do so would be considered a failure of the medical establishment, and we won't stand for that. Furthermore, with medical advancements, human beings are living longer. This also has its pros and cons. Because truthfully, if you've ever been to an aged care facility, you will realize that death is certainly not an instant thing anymore. It is prolonged, very prolonged. For many medical professionals and family members, as long as their elderly have a heartbeat and are breathing, then we are winning the war on death. No matter how much pain or suffering a patient is enduring, the thought that anything is better than death continues to linger. Now, don't get me wrong, medical advancements are a great thing. No one is denying that. In one way or another, it helps save millions of lives every day. We no longer die from simple infection or a broken bone. But we have also lost the ability to know when to stop medical intervention and to let a person go in peace. The funeral industry. The funeral industry wasn't always a thing. Pre-World War I Australia did have a small amount of funeral homes, but at the time, these services were considered unnecessary and impersonal. Funerals before World War I were prepared and conducted by family members who prepared the body, held services and wakes at home, and then took the body to the church graveyard themselves. This was considered the right way to mourn and care for the body. The idea of leaving them with strangers to carry out what was considered a very personal and intimate ritual seemed cruel and undignified to the people at the time. For many reasons, which we can do a video on later, comment below if you'd like to see that. After the travesty of World War I, along with the advancements in medicine, death was no longer seen as a peaceful transition to the afterlife and family reunion, but rather a dark, dirty, decrepit thing. Additionally, cremation, while flying in face of religion, really took off. And because you can't, do that at home, the funeral industry took off. Many people no longer wanted to interact with the dirty dead. And people were now dying more so in hospitals than at home, and the funeral industry saw an opportunity. It moved funerals away from family and friends, combined it with institutionalization, so few would ever need to see a body or interact with a body themselves. Funerals became distant. Mourners simply turned up and let the funeral company do the heavy lifting, with the undertaker taking care of the body behind the scenes. Thus, we have generation after generation of people who have never seen a dead body. And since we never see it, well, we're back to the fear of the unknown. The media. This one probably goes without saying, but the media plays a huge part in cementing our death fears. Look at how COVID played out in the news. Look how any death plays out in the news. It is sensationalized and demonized, and it has to be because it sells. They are just another business after all. See, while we as humans may be afraid of death, we're also strangely fascinated by it, and we have been throughout history. Think about how people love to hear about serial killers, or slow down to watch a car accident, or go to see the bodies at the Human Specimens Expo or ancient mummies at the museum. Back in the day, people would have a great day out at the latest bloody execution. We're an odd species. Nevertheless, the media plays on this fascination, and slowly everything we know about death and dying has become known to us through popular culture and media bias. And we have no personal experience in interacting with the dead and the dying in order to contradict it. Conclusion. The reasons why we fear death are in many ways natural. However, the reasons that we can't accept death as an inevitable part of life are not natural. This video is meant to bring to your attention the many reasons why we as individuals and as a society fear death, so that you can be empowered to change the ways you think and speak about death, rather than just ignoring it and letting it get the best of you. Remember, death is a normal, natural part of the human experience. Every single one of us will go through it at some point. We may not like it. We may think that as humans makes us special or infallible, but at the end of the day, we are just like every other living thing on the planet and need to tap out eventually. So go and make the most of it. Leave something behind that will be a positive, lasting legacy for future generations after you're gone. A massive thanks from me and Gary for joining us here at Taboo Education. Comment below and tell us what scares you about death. Like if you found this video informative, and please remember to subscribe and share. Let's get the word out there and get the conversation going. Now we'll see you next time. Go talk death.